Let's get weird, buddy. Let's get weird.
Guys, where are we?
Well, if there's a bright center to the universe, you're on the planet that it's farthest from.
Welcome to the Outer Rim. Enjoy your stay. All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. This is Rob here at Smirking Gun. It is Christmas Eve 2024, and I've got a little bit of privacy, sort of, and I decided to try and knock another one of these out so that we can finish before Season 2 starts January 17th. We'll be covering this show the week that it actually comes out instead of a couple of years later. A few years later, I think now. When did it actually? Yeah, a couple of years. Wow, actually kind of going on 3. Yeah. So it's been a minute since Severance been out, and I was late to the party, but I am here to talk about it now, and that's all that matters, to me anyway. And I want to thank anybody who's watching these. So if you are liking what I'm doing here, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. Got a ton of content on the channel. Just take a gander. There will probably be something that you'd be interested in hearing me talk about, unless you're already tired of how I talk right now, and you're like, "Fuck that! I've already clicked off. You didn't even hear this. I didn't even hear this part." So, but we are back talking Severance, one of my favorite shows of, like, at least so far. I mean, this is up there, high, fucking up there for me, because I just love the idea and how they run with it and made it such an interesting story, but about not just what the hell are they doing down there in Lumen Industries, but all the, crazy questions that, comes up to just about people and work and the characters in this and what they're all about and their motivations and who they really are. And it's just, there's so many different aspects to this dark comedy thriller. I mean, this thing to me is, when you have to say that many things about it, it's dark, it's a comedy, it's lightning in a bottle is what these shows are. These little miracles that pop up every once in a while that just give us some of the best shit we've ever seen, ever, ever. Okay, you can go back and go, "Oh, this show from back in 1950 was, oh, so ahead of its time and it's really good," but they don't really. Things just have a way of not holding up, especially with ideas and progress. And someday, maybe even Severance will be looked back on, and shows that we like now will be like, ugh. If we, if we progress, hopefully we progress. God help us, we need to still keep progressing. So, anyway, that's why I'm here still talking about this. This is episode 3. Full spoilers for everything in the entire universe. Just kidding. Just at least for this show. And any other spoilers that I come up with, I will warn you. But this is In Perpetuity. And man, like every time I watch the intro to this, I don't know, man. Like, I know there's always the temptation in all of these shows as we get lazier and lazier about watching TV and movies. We skip, we skip, we skip. We don't have ads. We don't blah, blah, blah. But man, there's certain intros that if you skip them, I never skip the intro to Severance. It's so creative. It gets me in the mood. It gets you in that vibe. It gives you that last second to go get something out of the fridge while you're humming it. And just thinking about all the great imagery and what the meaning of the intro is, and just the idea of it is just, it's fantastic. Don't skip the intro. Always watch the intro. I'm not saying for all shows, just shows like this. All right, so a lot happens in this goddamn episode. All right, because we find out like big stuff, little stuff, and I find the little stuff just as interesting as the big stuff a lot of times. Like, this gives us, like, confirms, like, Mrs. Selvig, Miss Cobell, whoever the fuck she is. We don't even know if either of those names is her name, right? She's definitely spying for sure. She is sitting outside of windows just for hours on end, waiting for something to happen. But they talk about this. Like Mark talks to Petey and tells him, like, it's just me in this neighborhood, me and Mrs. Selvig. Now, I guess to me, I don't know. I don't know. Mark, I guess, is one of those people who just keeps to himself, like a lot of people do. And I guess on the surface, there's no reason to look into the fact that one other lady lives there and you, and that's why she's so up in your business, right? That it's just you two there, so you might as well. Like, if you don't like, you only have one neighbor, you don't like them, you know what I'm saying? But we know that it's an empty place, so she's got him all to herself. Is that planned? Oh, this show does nothing but make you go down every kind of like, twisted, dark thought you have, and all kinds of ways that this could go. But, yeah, I mean, she has him all to herself, right? So, I think that's kind of what I wanna talk about first is just this whole thing with her because and I've got all kinds of notes here, 2 full pages of notes. But it's she's so weird because, we have these 2 different versions of her. At work, I mean, in this episode, she throws a coffee cup at him, and not just like I mean, I don't know how you throw a coffee cup at somebody playfully. I guess if it's like, underhanded and they know it's happening, like, "Hey, ho, ho." But, I mean, she whips it. He barely gets out of the way. But, like, when she's looking at him from across the yard and she sees him sitting down in front of the TV, drink in hand, she's, like, so concerned sounding. "Oh, Mark, are you alright?" To then when she, you know, goes next door and she's, like, breaking into his house. I mean, first she steals the book that his I'm sorry, I'm, like so she steals the book that her brother-in-law that his brother-in-law left, which I thought was a funny scene. I mean, it's, this guy and her, like, I don't know why she's with this guy. She's like, I realize that he's, like, as we find out, has written 5 books, but, like, he seems to I don't know, opposites attract, whatever, but, like, she steals the book. She goes into his house like it's her place. Just walks around like she owns the place, and she probably does, I don't know. Well, no, we also find out, like, kind of her place and things in this episode a little bit. But, she's walking around the house, she goes down to the basement, where Petey's hiding, and she goes into a book that a box. Now I actually went online to try to find out something about this because there was like, why is she going into his stuff? Why that specific box? There's somebody says that it says Cornell Scout on the box, which could be his father, somebody said. There's a bunch of stuff online. There's so much stuff online for this show once you start digging. Too much. Like, I could, like, start looking up all the stuff on here and bring you guys everything that all these people say, but I'm not gonna do it like that. I'm gonna my own voice has too many voices, so I don't need to, like, start bringing that many voices on y'all. But if you have stuff that you wanna say in the comment section about, like, what you think about different things, go ahead and throw it down there. Um yeah, but we definitely find out, like, more about her place in this. Um, but she gets this candle out of the box, and she says no. Now, I don't know what she's doing with that candle. She puts it in her bag. Maybe she just wants a souvenir. I don't know. Um, I feel like I'm starting to wonder if maybe I don't know. I don't know how all this works. I don't know how many different ways you can be severed. Like, can they take more than you know they're taking? Like, can they erase other things that you won't get back when you leave work? Like, say something's just totally gone. Because part of me is like, I feel like Mark knows her in some way, but doesn't remember knowing her. And that every time he sees her, whether she's Miss Cobell or Selvig, he doesn't, he only knows each one only remembers that one version of her and not any other one. But I don't know what's up with that. Is that candle gonna be if it comes up later in the show? I don't remember it coming up in the show again. It probably does. I was thinking maybe it's something that I don't know, some kind of weird head game that she's playing, or I don't know. But when she's at work, when he goes and meets her in the office after he gets once again, he goes in there to talk about getting them their field trip. The way she acts to him is so different. And I know that she's, now she's, as we find out, she's not like the head of Lumen or anything like that. She's the head of this department. And, that they expect things from her. This isn't some front. Like her job, whatever the fuck they're doing and that we don't know, and maybe she knows, but maybe she doesn't know. But she, like when they're talking about the numbers and this whole thing with Petey and how you can tell, like, she doesn't have all the answers. You know what I mean? She feels like this all powerful being because she is for those people. For all intents and purposes, she's their kind of god. And fucking Milchick is God's fucking, I don't know, bouncer or something like that. Um, but when she throws the coffee cup, it was the first time that I actually, I think this is my third time watching this, maybe fourth. When she says that it like hurt her, like it was hard for her to throw that cup at him, and that she hopes he uses it as some chance to learn. It was weird because it really did kind of feel like maybe as much as she's like feels like she's doing whatever she has to I don't know, keep him on the flying straight and narrow or whatever. I actually believe that there's that part of her that really did hurt to have to throw the cup at him. It's like trying to believe though which personality is the stronger personality here. Like what part is she playing is the more honest version of herself, you know? And I want to say that it's the one that's spying on him, the Mrs. Selvig persona, because that feels more real. And the more that I watch this, the more this version of her, Cobell, is the face she has to put on. But why? Like in the spying thing, if she's concerned, right? Is it because like I don't know, like I don't know. I love that I don't know. I'm a little worried about when I will know. But so far this show is the way it's crafted is so good that I don't think I got to be worried too much uh, about where it's going to end up. Okay. All right. So next up, okay. So we had her. We've talked about her. I think pretty much enough for right now. So Petey brings up. Well, poor Petey. Let's talk about Petey all the way. So in this, he's the one that's like Having a very hard time. He's in Mark's basement. He's talking about the Fortress of Solitude, and it made me think: was that something that Mark S. said inside? Uh, is it something that bled somehow inside that Mark referenced? But this is where Petey's we started seeing the hallucinations that Petey is having through integration, uh, and they're just getting worse. Where he's in the middle of talking, and all of a sudden Irving walks in. I love how they shoot these things, though. Too, it is so awesome. Where it's like they blend the Severance world to the real world, practically like you wouldn't even know like the difference. It's really awesome. But they're coming in and he's hallucinating bad. They're talking about Sunset Park. And it made me like think about all those file names that we've heard, trying to find out if there's any like connection. What do they mean? And it did send me back to that Severance wiki, which I do highly recommend people go check out, because it sent me to what macro data refinement files means, or their definition of it on the wiki. And it basically reads like a employee handbook, where it's like, when you begin your work in macro data refinement, you will be assigned a macro data file. This selection has been made carefully by your superior. Turn on your computer, sit back and watch as your computer cycles through its boot up process. Do not be alarmed by the many lines of text appearing on your screen. This is completely normal. Your computer is simply loading the macro data refining program. Now watch as the iconic logo of our beloved company spins onto the screen. This is all a part of the computer's boot up sequence. So they give you like everything. And then we get this list of files: Tumwater, Pacoma, Siena, Bellingham, Coleman, Moonbeam, Jasper, Minsk, Nanning, Labrador, Narva, Lexington, Sunset Park, Eminence, Jessup, Kingsport, Lamar's, Long Branch, Moonbeam, Ocula, Eminence. So a lot of these, are places that I've heard of. Some are not. Some, I mean, I guess they all could be, names of different things, maybe hippie names from like whatever. But I don't know. I find this all really fascinating. I highly, again, once you check this out, um, because it's like, okay, so after opening your file, you will be met with a sea of numbers that seem to stretch endlessly in all directions. Over time, certain clusters of numbers will start to make them feel a certain way. There are 4 categories of numbers, each of which elicits a different feeling. A refiner's job is to fill each of 5 bins evenly with the 4 kinds of number clusters. Once every bin is properly filled, the file is 100% refined and the job is done. Files worked on by the refiners most recently employed by macro data refinement in the Cure flagship office of Lumen, Tumwater, and the Siena file. Okay, well then if you click on Tumwater, you get this expert saying Lumen brings clean water to Lesotho. Hmm. That's weird. Okay, because I'm just finding this out with everybody else. All right, I'm just that's another just bit I was thinking about that just made me think about all these file names. And again, check out that Severance wiki. It's crazy. Um, but going back to Petey, right? He's talking about how he's basically experiencing like all those memories are bleeding and scrambling up his brain, so that, like, he says that time is messed up, so that like the first day of working at Lumen is also like he's remembering back when he was like 5 years old. It's crazy. So all of it's jumping back and forth. But then he brings up they. They being the people that did this to him, the reintegration, so that, he's gonna be okay eventually. He doesn't sound quite as certain though anymore. Um, but Mark thinks he's talking about the people from last episode called the Whole Mind Collective. But that's what I expect him to say. Like, yeah, you've heard of them, But no, it's not them. It's someone else, and he doesn't even get to tell us who that is. Of course, it's one of those things, like, of course he didn't get to tell us, and son of a bitch show. Um, but they are apparently the people that are gonna take down Lumen. But also over the course of this episode and what he was saying last episode is he's trying to get Mark to be convinced to have reintegration done. Um, but because I mean, what is the cost of severance? It's another one of the millions of questions that this show brings up of like, well, what if you don't know what you're doing down there, what if what you're doing is causing the deaths of who knows how many people? Now, I know that this company is up to something. Killing people, outright killing people, I don't know. I I it's one of those things. But it's one of those things where, I mean, if you really don't know and you really don't care, I mean, and all you want, like, because Mark tells him, and we get another confirmation here where Mark tells him, like, I lost my wife a couple years ago, you know, in a car accident, right? Lost wife, car accident, and Lumen and the severance thing has helped him. At least that's what he thinks, right? Um, but he keeps going, and there's more to tell from him. That there's a whole department where you don't even get to leave. Now, because of everything that Petey's going through, it does make him kind of an unreliable narrator. Because even though he's told them about the map he made and he did all these things, but because of reintegration, we don't know. I don't think himself even knows like what's real, what's not real. Is what I'm seeing from like those times like something that happened, or is it something that's being influenced because of what is going on in front of him right now with like where the conversation that he's having seems to kind of blend a little bit with what's happening. So even us as an audience, as we get to witness all this stuff, we don't have all the information and we don't know like if some of these things he's even talking about is correct. And I love that too, because it makes you have to like just like Mark is having to experience this and make a decision on whether or not to keep going with it and how much does he believe. The show's asking us, everybody in the audience. So you sitting there next to your wife or your girlfriend, your boyfriend, or whoever, just your friend or the dog, you could all be seeing it in a different way. You might not have the same opinion of what's going on as that person you're watching it with. And that's amazing. That's like this again, like I said, it's the kind of show that like I love participation TV, but that doesn't feel like not like Game of Thrones where everybody sits in a bar and just sits around waiting for the next person to die or, next person to, I don't know, some big moment to happen. I mean, I'm not saying that those aren't fun. I'm just saying this is not that. Um, yeah, this is the more pretentious, I guess. This is for the pretentious people out there. Um, but I did like that Cobell Selvig does not find Petey. I was really worried about that. In fact, I wasn't 100% sure. My memory wasn't 100% sure that she doesn't find him in this. Um, ba, 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 ba. Trying to go through my notes here. And he tells Mark, right? They talk about his red eyes because Petey can see them here because he falls asleep drinking, falls asleep either exhausted or drunk. And he says that we used to joke about it down in Lumen, and that now that he knows what it's caused by, the loss of his wife, he's like, you feel the loss down there too. He looks at him and he just knows now. That's how good of friends they are. He just doesn't know it, and how much he pays attention. and being able to connect what is happening to Mark S outside is happening to Mark S inside. It's just that Mark S, who's in Lumen, doesn't know where this pain and this feeling is. And that gives Mark pause, but not enough. Like, that's where he has to cut out of there. He's like, I got to go. I got to get out of here. But it is something. And I like that. So down in Lumen, down in the Severance floor, it's New Photos Day. So they finally get everything so that Mark can take out the old pictures of Petey and replace them with the ones with Helly in them. And that is a huge thing that pays off later. And again, another just weird thing going on here where Milchick is just taking pictures like he's photographing a model, right? Well, he's just reading the announcements for the first time. And I'm like, who are all these photos for? Are they for like their promotional material? Are they for employee handbooks to describe like this is what's going on in Lumen or something? Is this going to be in some newsletter for like the company, but not the new like a newsletter that they would get because it doesn't sound like they would get one? But is that like like given to the people that I don't know, that work in like I don't even know what a normal section of Lumen would be, but whatever a normal section of Lumen would be, where hey, we get a monthly little thing that shows like what's going on in this department, even though that department doesn't even know about this department. There's so many things. But a lot of things go on here. Uh Helly's outie. Okay, so Helly's all excited because she's formally rejected, put in her for resignation. And while Mark is giving off the announcements, one of the announcements is that your outie didn't give you the permission to quit the job. And this just accelerates more and more from Helly to freak out and get like even more and more. And I love Helly. That's why I keep putting her up there, keeping her avatar picture on my thing because I love Brett Lauer and I love her portrayal of Helly because I feel like Helly is like really us, a normal person, and how they would react to being down there, which is again like what makes her character pay off so much harder, knowing like how much she doesn't want to be there when we know like by Milchick's own admission, like whatever she's brave for being down there. She whatever purpose, wherever she is outside of that room in Lumen is important. And I think that shouldn't be like lost on the audience, even by episode 3, that whoever she is out there and is important, she working at Severance is so bad that she does not want her own self doesn't want to be down there. But she okay, so da, 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 PD da, da, da. Sorry, I did all this out of order. Okay, so after she gets rejected, she's in the bathroom and I almost use this as the thumbnail. I love it. Maybe I'll use it as the avatar from now on. But she writes "let me out," but like on 2 sides of her arm. I mean, I don't know why I'm telling you guys like you don't know. This was full spoilers. So I love that she just and I love how creative they get during this episode where she writes on her arm, then she makes her own pill out of like caps, I think, from like pens or something, and uses tape, and she swallows it, and he tells her that they can still read it inside of you. What are you fucking talking about? What kind of shit is in those goddamn elevators? That's all I'm saying. And then do you want Granger Grainer to use the bad soap? What the fuck does that even mean? And why are you scared of it? Why should she be scared of it? But because of all this leads Irving, played by John Turturro, to bring up the Perpetuity wing, that maybe because she doesn't feel like any of this is important, no kind of connection to this place, no kind of history to this place. We need to let her know that whatever like she's wanted here and she's a part of something. And this is where again it starts to get just that weird culty vibe of like what Kier was trying to do. When we talked about this already with the tempers, and what this guy was how he was trying to mold the worker into to what I believe is like a broken person who rel- I, I, I don't even know. It's fucked to me. But yeah, I mean, he's like, it's a lot. It's everything, you know. So also, like, this was right before this, in after this scene, we have Cobell slash Selvig. She knows that it's Rickon, his brother-in-law, that dropped the book off. She knows who he is, and she knows that it's his 5th book. This is how much she's in his life. And the way she talks about when she says it's Rickon, again, I swear this lady has to be family in some way. I don't know why. Um But they go on their little field trip. They get permission, blah blah blah. This is where we're introduced to Egan Bingo, a card that Dylan gives everybody, basically to pass the time as Irving regales them with the history of Lumen and Kier and all of this stuff. And I think that's really funny. All these little fun touches that make where they're trying to make a life, make whatever they're doing down there for 8 hours a day. I mean, for them, it's like they're never not down there. They don't sleep. So it's like you get on the elevator, you get off the elevator, you get on the elevator or off the elevator, you get on the elevator. And it's just this never ending cycle of work, nothing but each other for eternity. So you have to figure out ways to get through it or go crazy, or I don't know. Because see, this is the thing. Like I said, maybe I'd be good at severing last episode, that I'd be running the place. But if this is all you did, I would fucking lose it. Anyway, this is what they do to pass the time. But in the hallway, once again, turn the corner, and there's Christopher Walken's Bert with the other member of Optics and Design, I believe it's called. And Dylan barely able to hold his bile back as they're just meeting again for the second time. Um, I love any of these scenes. They're just really funny and cute, and just gives us a little more history. We see that they were doing some kind of egg challenge that it looks like they failed. So I mean, nobody brings that up in the conversation, and that where they're talking is like, well, the two of you couldn't even do the egg challenge together. So what does that say about your department, huh? But they bring up this coup that supposedly happened like decades ago, where there was like a literal attack on each other, and by the two departments, that O&D like tried to kill everybody in their department. And or at least that's what and if I'm wrong about that, somebody hit me up. But like again, it just sounds like something that's sort of true, but mostly made up. And also probably depending on the perspective of what's going on, it's probably not much accuracy. But to me, it just brings up that whole keep these people fighting each other so that they don't look at what they're actually doing. Make sure they don't question anything else. Make sure everything's a mystery. Make sure they're all in the dark, because I mean, they're blank slates anyway. We can fill them up with whatever we want, whatever bullshit. So it's like it doesn't matter if you're out in the real world or in Severance. Somebody's filling your head full of fucking bullshit and nonsense to keep you fighting with the people that you should be working together. So it happens no matter what. No matter what, like you severed or not, you're getting fucked with by the higher ups. Um, but this also, when we get back to Cobell, right? We get to see that she, like when I said her place in all of this in the company. that there's Natalie sitting there looking way more important than her, and she's just like the voice. She's the person who listens to the board, which I don't even again, the board is another mystery. Is there just one person on there? Is Natalie the board? Like, is it just one other person on the other end of this? It's all so weird and mysterious. It makes me think of some of the stuff that they do on with the cops in Twin Peaks. Any of the scenes with the cops in Twin Peaks, or not the cops, the FBI on Twin Peaks. There's always this, like, to me, this mystery of like what they're really doing there and who's in charge. And I'm sorry, I'm going off on Twin Peaks. I don't even know why. Just probably think because mystery, tone, all of that's a little similar to me. Not as weird as, I mean, because Twin Peaks is fucking weird and out there, but so is this, just in different ways. Um, but they're unhappy, but it all still comes back to numbers. Make sure your numbers are fine. Get your numbers to where they need to be. Not what are we going to do about Petey? What if he talks to somebody? It all ends up coming down to like numbers, but in some way, she feels like she's been put in her place because she doesn't get to hear anything. She just they just have demands, and she doesn't even quite know like what to say. She knows what she thinks she's supposed to say, but is it? She doesn't know. You know what I'm saying? And then all of a sudden the conversation's over while you're still talking. So we get our tour of the Egan Museum, another really creepy thing that made me think of like some of the places in Disneyland with the animatronics, except done more like this is the Shakey's Pizza version of like, or not Shakey's, but like one of those like animatronics, like, yeah, it like the Hall of Presidents, but like the Shakey's Pizza version, if you know what I'm saying. Like, or not Shakey's, Showbiz Pizza. Like how there's Chuck E. Cheese and there was Showbiz Pizza. And I don't know what I'm doing here. I don't know what I'm talking about anymore. God, I think I need to sever myself from remembering I made this. Anyway, well, it's really creepy. It's the history of Kier. Again, look up all this stuff is on the Severance wiki. It's so bizarre. It's like just a bunch of wax people from like all the CEOs and Irving talking about the, gloriousness of Kia. And while they're arguing, because Irving finds the bingo card and how this is Helly's chance and they're ruining it for her, she takes the time to run like hell and try to break out with like a message, one last message to get out to her Audi to say, I don't want to fucking work here. Please let me go. She cuts her arm up in the door. Granger shows up. And instead of anything else, man, what happens? They immediately send her to the break room. And this is what we really get to see what goes on in there. And this is where, again, I would never be able to do this in the end. Because Milchick's in there, right? Oh, also, Milchick is reading before she gets caught. He's reading the book that they stole from Mark's, from Rickon, or Rickon, that Rickon left for Mark. And the UUR, which is what the next episode is called. And he's reading it and laughing. And I imagine I'd be laughing too. But they're up there reading it. And they bring her into the break room. And when he tells you, like, you need to sit down and all this other shit, this is where I'd be like, no, let me the fuck out of here right now. Let me the fuck out of here right now, or it's time to throw hands. Like, I would be coming at this dude. I'd be going for the door, and anybody who gets in my fucking way, it would be time to throw hands. But for some reason, this is the part that I'm trying to figure out, is why she willingly sits down, puts her hand on the table, and as he tells her to start reading this stuff, right? First she's like, I don't want to. He's like, no, do it. And then she just does. I'd be, why? Does it's because the story we need her to do that? I don't know. I feel like Kelly would just be like, take this speech, shove it up your ass, twice, but she reads it. And he says, it's not good enough. She reads it again. And it's mental torture, but you're putting yourself through it unless there's some kind of something going on in that room that we don't know about that's compelling her somehow through the device to continue, where she doesn't have a choice but to keep saying it over and over again, even if she can also sort of say, no, I don't want to do this, and yet do it again. It's really weird. And speaking of really weird, then at the end, Mark is changing out the pictures. And then the one that I can only assume maybe was Petey's, Mark finds the map that Petey left. And as this is happening, Petey is in a convenience store, like collapsing, screaming about tokens because he needs tokens to eat, because that's what they use to get stuff out of vending machines at Severance. So there's all kinds of things. Like Mark sees break room and knows what that means, then puts it together. This is a map of this place. He goes to the elevator, and as he's going up the elevator, I mean, maybe it's just them. It's what I love is the transition of Mark S. in Lumen thinking about all this stuff, and then seeing that actual change go over his face where now he remembers none of this stuff. That is so important as he's going up the elevator means nothing as he gets out. Except Mark out does have concerns. They're not able to share the same information yet. And as Mark gets home looking for Petey, he's not there. And when he does find him at the convenience store, Petey gets this weird look of like, it's my friend look on his face just as he collapses, falls to the ground. Mark, scared, gets the hell out of there, goes home, kind of fixes everything in his basement so it doesn't look like anybody was there. And just as Mark is leaving, Petey's phone starts ringing that he left in Mark's basement. And that's where we fade to black. So, yeah, I think Petey's family might finally be looking for him. Or maybe they've been trying to find him this whole time. I can't remember. Maybe I've been severed again. A lot of severance jokes in this, severing myself jokes in this video. But that's where we get to the end of this. I want to thank everybody for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I've gone on way longer than I meant to go on, but that's okay. That's what happens sometimes when I'm enjoying talking about something. So I'm just going to end it there. So don't forget, like and subscribe. We'll be back with episode 4 as soon as I get more free time. So thanks for watching, everybody. Bye. Ba 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 bum. Bum 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 bum.